Have you ever felt as though you're stuck in a maze, unsure why the same patterns keep showing up in your life? Perhaps you're pursuing a goal that always seems just out of reach, or you're carrying a sense of emptiness, like something important is missing, something that could bring clarity and purpose. What you're about to learn might be that missing piece. Carl Jung believed that events in life don't occur randomly. Once you grasp this idea, you may start uncovering answers to questions that have puzzled you for years. Your birth was more than just the beginning of your physical life. It marked the start of a deeper relationship between you and the universe. Being born wasn't a coincidence. It came with subtle hints about your true identity, what motivates you, and the obstacles you're likely to face along the way. While some may brush this off as mere superstition, Jung, one of the most influential figures in psychology, demonstrated that there's far more to it. He introduced the concept of the collective unconscious, an unseen system of symbols and recurring patterns that connect our personal experiences to a larger reality. Think about it. How often have you overlooked signs or felt out of place without understanding why? Maybe you've tried to fill that internal gap through achievements, relationships, or distractions, only to find none of it really worked. That lingering discomfort might stem from a deeper issue. You may not be living in alignment with your authentic self. And the starting point for reconnecting with who you truly are can be found in the moment of your birth. For millennia, cultures across the globe have believed that the time of birth holds key insights into the path your life is meant to follow. Not because everything is predetermined, but because we are part of a larger design. Just like the seasons, each with its own rhythm and purpose, winter encourages reflection, spring signals renewal, summer supports growth, and autumn invites introspection. Your birth carries its own unique energy. It influences your personality, decisions, passions, and even your fears. The issue arises when you don't fully understand how this energy functions. Without that awareness, you may unintentionally resist it rather than align with it. Carl Jung found that many internal struggles come from a disconnect with what he referred to as universal archetypes. These are deeply embedded patterns that influence how we interpret the world and act within it. Jung proposed that your birth month can reveal which archetypal forces are most dominant in you, helping to identify your natural strengths and the obstacles you may encounter along the way. It's similar to using a compass. If you don't know how to read it, you can easily lose your way. But once you understand how to read the signals, your direction becomes more clear. Have you ever questioned why some people lead with ease, while others express themselves best through creativity or empathy? That's not an accident. Every individual is born with a distinct energy. Some are natural leaders, bold and inspiring, ready to take on new challenges. Others are emotionally sensitive, able to tune in to what others are feeling. These are natural caregivers, offering support and empathy. Then there are those drawn to life's deeper questions, seeking connection with something beyond the material, a spiritual journey. But what happens when you ignore your own nature and try to become someone you're not? Life begins to feel difficult, like constantly moving against the flow. It's like planting a sunflower in unsuitable soil. It just won't thrive no matter the effort. Perhaps that's what you're experiencing right now. Maybe you're trying to fit into a role that doesn't align with who you truly are, while your real potential remains undiscovered. Carl Jung believed true change starts when we turn inward and face what we've long avoided. For him, self-awareness was like switching on a light in a dark room. Suddenly, what was hidden becomes visible, and what once seemed overwhelming starts to make sense. That's exactly what you should do now. Take a sincere look at yourself and ask, what is my birth month revealing about my true self? Just imagine for a moment that your birth wasn't random, but a meaningful part of a broader design. That every struggle has a purpose and your strengths aren't accidental. The key is learning to interpret the signs and using them to build the life you're meant to live. Because everything you need is already within you. You just haven't learned how to tap into it yet. For generations, great minds like Jung understood that the universe communicates through symbols and patterns. In earlier times, people searched the stars for answers. Today, those answers are often found by looking within. Have you ever noticed that certain seasons affect you more than others? That some months seem to energize you, while others leave you feeling slower or more reflective? That's not just a coincidence. It's the influence of your birth moment subtly guiding your path. But that doesn't mean your life is predetermined. In fact, it's quite the opposite. Carl Jung taught that by becoming aware of these recurring patterns, we can break free from them and take control of our choices. This isn't about predicting what's ahead. It's about understanding yourself on a deeper level and using that understanding to make intentional decisions. Before we move forward, take a moment to ask yourself a simple yet important question. What are you really seeking? You might not have the answer just yet, but by the end of this journey, you'll likely see yourself in a completely new way. You'll begin to realize that everything you've been through, the highs and lows, the victories and the struggles, has been part of a larger pattern. And once you begin to see that pattern clearly, even your most difficult experiences can offer meaningful insight. So if you've ever had the feeling that there's something within you waiting to be uncovered, stay with this. What comes next may help you tap into a part of yourself you haven't fully accessed yet. Because as Jung once said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. Now is the moment to take the reins. Now that you've seen the connection, get ready. In the next part, we'll go further, looking at how the unique energy of your birth month shapes your emotions, influences your decisions, and even affects the kinds of opportunities that show up in your life. This journey is just getting started.
Have you ever felt like you were stuck in a cycle you couldn't see? Like no matter how much progress you make, you somehow end up facing the same challenges again? It could be a relationship that never quite worked, a job that didn't meet your expectations, or a lingering sense of not fitting in, as though the world is moving in one direction while you drift quietly in another. If any of that sounds familiar, you're not alone. Millions of people are caught in this very pattern without ever realizing why. But Carl Jung offered a powerful insight. What we often label as fate may actually be part of a larger cosmic rhythm. And you're not just a participant in that rhythm, you're also its designer. Jung believed that the patterns influencing our lives are neither random nor meaningless. Instead, they reflect a deeper connection between the individual and the universe. He likened human life to a river, flowing through curves, rocks, and challenges, yet always moving forward. But that river's path isn't aimless. It's shaped by forces, both internal and external, often invisible, but leaving subtle marks along the way. One of those marks is the moment of your birth. And it's not just about planetary positions or moon phases, it's something more fundamental. It's the archetypal energy that peaked the instant you entered the world. Consider Anna, a 48-year-old literature teacher. Outwardly, her life appears stable. She has a steady job, a simple home, 2 adult children, and a supportive husband. Yet, deep down, Anna carries a burden that's hard to explain. Since her early 20s, she has felt like she's constantly running out of time, chasing an ideal she can't quite reach. Every time things begin to improve, something unexpected disrupts her progress. A difficult manager, financial stress, or that recurring sense of not being enough, making her doubt even her own achievements. She often wonders, why does life feel so difficult? Is this how it's always going to be? What Anna doesn't realize is that much of this internal conflict is tied to the energy of her birth month, April. Born in a fire month, she embodies the archetype of pioneers and builders, those who are driven to take action, to lead, to create. But as Jung noted, every energy carries a shadow. In Anna's case, that shadow shows up as restlessness and harsh self-judgment. She feels a constant urge to stay in motion, to always achieve more, yet it never seems sufficient. This underlying pattern, rooted deep in her subconscious, influences how she reacts to obstacles and choices. But here's the key point. Anna isn't fated to repeat this pattern endlessly. Jung's teachings remind us that we can transform these cycles through awareness. By recognizing these unconscious forces, Anna can begin to balance her drive with moments of calm and self-reflection. She can learn that she doesn't have to bear every burden alone, and that sometimes true strength lies in the ability to pause.
This is what Jung described as the cosmic dance, the balance between opposing energies within us. Now, think of Roberto, a 57-year-old mechanical engineer. He's the dependable provider, someone who's always prioritized others' needs over his own. From early on, he believed success was defined by financial stability and professional respect. And for decades, that belief served him well. He built a successful career, supported his family, and secured their future. But now, as retirement nears, Roberto feels a sense of emptiness. The accomplishments that once brought him pride now feel hollow. He begins to question the purpose behind everything he's worked for. Roberto was born in May, a month linked to themes of security, stability, and bridging the material with the spiritual. For much of his life, he lived in harmony with this energy, creating a reliable foundation for himself and his loved ones. Yet this energy also has its shadow side. In Roberto's case, it shows up as a strong need for control and an aversion to uncertainty. Now faced with the vast unknown of retirement, he realizes he spent so much time building a stable life that he never stopped to ask himself, what truly makes me happy? Jung believed the unconscious always finds a way to express itself, whether through dreams, emotions, or unexpected life events. For Roberto, this current emptiness isn't a failure. It's a prompt to explore a part of himself he's long neglected. He must learn to loosen his grip, to accept that not everything can be controlled, and most importantly, to trust that unplanned change can bring meaning and beauty. Can you see echoes of these stories in your own life? Perhaps you've walked a path that once felt right, but no longer aligns with who you are today. Maybe you've ignored signs, physical, emotional, or spiritual, until they became impossible to avoid. But here's the hopeful truth. It's never too late to change your narrative. The cosmic dance that Jung spoke of isn't a constraint, it's an opportunity for growth. Once you understand the energies influencing your life, you can start to work with them rather than against them. If you were born in January, for example, you may realize that your natural tendency to lead doesn't mean you have to handle everything alone. If you were born in July, you might understand that your deep empathy doesn't need to deplete you. It can be a powerful gift when used with intention. Jung often reminded us that self-awareness doesn't remove life's difficulties, but it equips us with the wisdom to navigate them. When you start to notice the recurring patterns in your life, something meaningful shifts. You no longer see yourself as a passive victim of circumstance. You begin to recognize yourself as the author of your own journey.
What once appeared unchangeable starts to feel understandable, and you realize the power to make different choices is in your hands. Think back to a time when life seemed to collapse around you. Perhaps it was the end of a relationship, losing a job, or facing a health struggle. In those moments, you might have asked, "Why is this happening to me?" But consider looking at those experiences through a new lens. What if they weren't punishments, but opportunities? Invitations to explore neglected parts of yourself and to grow in ways you hadn't imagined. Life's rhythm isn't about avoiding hardship. It's about finding balance between challenges and the lessons they carry. That balance begins with recognizing the energy that has been with you since the day you were born. Whether you were in your 30s, 50s, or even your 60s, self-awareness has no deadline. The deeper you explore your inner world, the closer you come to living a life aligned with your true purpose. So, are you ready to look within and uncover the energies shaping your path? Because once you make that decision, the mystery of life shifts. It stops feeling like a force outside your control and becomes your strongest ally. In the next part, we'll learn how to identify these unique energies and use them to transform the way you experience reality. As Jung explained, the unconscious is always speaking to those willing to listen. Now, reflect on this. How much does the environment you were born into shape who you are? Not only the physical place, but also the timing, the season, the climate, the silence or noise of that exact moment. All of it became part of the unseen story you carry with you. At the instant of your birth, the world around you was in motion. Every detail, from sunlight streaming through a window to the sound of rain, contributed to your very first impression of existence. That moment was more than a biological event. It was the quiet beginning of a symbolic journey. Carl Jung believed the collective unconscious wasn't mystical, but a psychological truth, an underlying connection shared through universal symbols or archetypes. Your birth marked the start of that connection. From the moment you drew your first breath, it was as if an invisible thread was woven between you and the universe, linking the external world to your inner self. Yet many people never recognize this link. Without awareness, we can spend our lives overlooking the subtle signs pointing us toward a more meaningful path. So pause and ask yourself, are you truly living the life you want, or are you caught in a version shaped by others' expectations? That sense of detachment may stem from being unaware of the patterns silently directing your choices. Carl Jung once said that when we ignore the unconscious, it finds other ways to speak, through dreams, illness, or repeated life situations. If you find yourself facing the same problems over and over, or feel as if you're struggling against something unseen, it may be time to listen to what your birth itself has been signaling all along. Take the example of Pedro, a man convinced he was on the right track. He built a respected career as a corporate executive, earned well, and gained recognition among his colleagues. But just before he was set for a major promotion, something unexpected happened. He suffered a panic attack. In a matter of days, the sense of control he had relied upon began to fall apart. Suddenly, the work he once valued felt unbearable. Without fully realizing why, Pedro found himself on the edge of walking away from everything. What triggered this sudden collapse? Pedro was born in September, a month often associated with perfectionism and the pursuit of order. From childhood, he was taught responsibility, duty, and the need to excel at everything he attempted. For many years, this drive worked to his advantage. But the hidden side of this archetype, which he ignored for most of his life, eventually began to weigh him down. Pedro's self-criticism was so intense that he could never celebrate even his greatest achievements. He always believed he could have done better. That relentless inner pressure built up over time until it demanded release. Now, think about your own life. How often have you pushed aside your emotions because it didn't feel like the right time to face them? How many times have you carried on when something inside you was signaling that something was wrong, simply because the world expected strength? While that mindset may feel necessary, Jung reminded us that what we repress never truly disappears. It hides, waiting for the right moment to resurface, often during a personal crisis. But it doesn't always have to lead to collapse. With self-awareness, a crisis can become a turning point. In Pedro's case, once he sought help, he discovered he didn't need to abandon his career. What he needed was a new approach. He learned to treat himself with compassion and to acknowledge his successes without demanding perfection. By recognizing that the archetype of perfectionism carries both the bright side, excellence, and a shadow side, harsh self-judgment, he was able to restore balance. As a result, Pedro not only recovered, but grew into a more empathetic and effective leader, now aware of his own limits and the limits of others. This leads to an important question. Which archetype is quietly shaping your life? The answer matters more than you might think. Some people are born with leadership energy, like those in January or April. Others, such as those in July, are deeply attuned to others' emotions, a gift that, without care, can cause emotional burnout. Meanwhile, people born in December often carry an expansive optimism that inspires others, but they can lose direction if they rely too heavily on outside approval. Think about your own birth month. How has it influenced your choices so far? Are you living through the positive side or the shadow side of your archetype? Perhaps like Pedro, you've noticed recurring patterns in your life that you haven't fully explored. Don't be afraid. Recognizing these patterns is the first step to transforming them.
Jung believed self-awareness is like walking through a dark house with a flashlight. You need the courage to shine light into the corners you usually avoid. One of those corners may be the belief system you inherited from your upbringing. If you were taught that success only matters when it comes through struggle and sacrifice, you may have accepted that as truth. But pause and ask yourself, is that really how you want your life to be? This is where reflection plays a vital role. Ask, what beliefs do I hold that I've never questioned? Perhaps you feel you must always be strong, or that rest isn't deserved until every goal is complete. Many of these beliefs stem from the archetypal energy tied to your birth month, yet they don't have to define you forever. The real power of self-awareness lies in recognizing these influences and deciding what to do with them. Consider this example. Helena, a 52-year-old woman, lived her entire life believing true love required sacrifice. In every relationship, she prioritized her partner's needs over her own, creating a recurring pattern of imbalance that left her feeling unfulfilled. Born in February, a month connected with empathy and emotional healing, Helena embodied its bright side by being a caring listener and a source of comfort. But the shadow side, ignoring her own needs, slowly eroded her self-worth. Her transformation began when she recognized this cycle. She learned that genuine empathy starts with herself. She realized that setting boundaries is not selfish, but an act of self-love. And by caring for herself first, she became even more capable of supporting others, this time in a healthier way. Helena's story reminds us that archetypes are not chains, but opportunities. If you feel stuck in a repeating cycle, ask, what lesson is this experience offering me? Jung believed healing begins when we stop viewing our challenges as enemies and start seeing them as teachers. Before we continue, I encourage you to reflect in the comments. What patterns have you noticed in your life that may be connected to your birth month? Don't underestimate the value of self-reflection. By sharing your experience, you may find that others are on a similar path, and together you can discover new ways to grow. Remember, every archetype has a purpose. When you consciously work with it, it becomes an ally, not a burden. In the next section, we'll explore how these archetypes can bring real transformation to your life and how you can turn shadows into sources of strength. As Jung said, where your fear is, there lies your power. Now imagine yourself on a train, moving along what appears to be a straight track, only to realize there are hidden detours along the way. You think you're in control, yet with each season, you arrive at destinations you never planned. Does that sound familiar? Living in routine while being guided by something deeper, down a path you never consciously chose? If you've ever wondered why certain cycles repeat in your life, in relationships, at work, or within your emotions, you're about to uncover something essential. none of it is random. Jung said, the unconscious doesn't just influence our decisions, it creates patterns. And if we ignore them, they will lead us back to the same place again and again. But what does it truly mean to recognize and break a pattern? Consider the story of Mariana, a 38-year-old with a successful career in marketing. From the outside, she seemed to have it all: financial stability, frequent travel, and a strong social life. Yet one area of her life was filled with struggle: romantic relationships. Over the years, she had been in several passionate relationships, all of which ended in heartbreak. Time and again, her partners told her, "You're amazing, but something just isn't working." Eventually, Mariana began to believe she was the problem. But during therapy based on Jungian psychology, she made a surprising discovery. Her therapist asked, "What do all of these relationships have in common?" At first, Mariana pointed out her partner's flaws: lack of commitment, betrayal, emotional distance, but as she looked closer, she noticed something far more uncomfortable. The underlying theme was an unconscious fear of rejection. From childhood, she believed she had to be flawless in order to be loved. This belief was so ingrained that she kept being drawn to partners who reinforced it, creating the same cycle of hurt. But then came a moment of realization that shifted everything. Jung taught that when we bring hidden patterns from the unconscious into awareness, we gain the ability to change them. For Mariana, this meant rewriting her inner narrative. She began noticing when she was reshaping herself just to be accepted, and for the first time, she set clear boundaries. The result? Instead of seeking approval, she started asking, "What do I want in a relationship?" Within months, her life changed. She met a partner who valued her as she was, with no demand for perfection. How often have you felt caught in patterns that seemed beyond your control? It might be a job that always ends in disappointment, a friendship that repeatedly collapses, or an endless cycle of overthinking that leaves you stuck. These experiences are not random. They are signals that something within you is asking to be acknowledged. Jung called this individuation, the process of integrating both light and shadow within ourselves so we can become whole. Consider this powerful statistic. A Harvard study found that 80% of people unconsciously repeat familiar patterns in their relationships without realizing it. That doesn't mean failure is inevitable. It simply means many of us operate on emotional autopilot. The good news? Autopilot can be switched off. Once it is, the conscious journey begins. The study revealed something vital. When people become aware of their patterns, they can transform not just their relationships, but also their mental health and sense of self-worth. Now pause and reflect. Could the pattern you're living right now be the next one to break? When was the last time you asked yourself whether your choices are truly your own, or simply echoes of your upbringing, environment, or old emotional wounds? Share your thoughts in the comments. You may find others facing the same struggles. At the core, we are all connected through these invisible narratives. When Jung studied archetypes, he wasn't doing so only for academic purposes. He believed these universal symbols in our psyche could help us decode the patterns that guide our lives. One of the most influential archetypes is the hero, the figure who confronts challenges, overcomes them, and returns transformed. But here's what many overlook. Before becoming a hero, you must first admit there is an obstacle to face. Too often, we avoid difficulties, deny they exist, or hope they'll resolve on their own. Yet real transformation begins the moment we stop avoiding and find the courage to face what's hard. Jung believed that what we repress in the unconscious doesn't vanish. It continues to influence us until we confront it. The patterns shaping our lives are not punishments. They are invitations to know ourselves more deeply. When we uncover the hidden beliefs behind our choices, we open the door to freedom, to new directions, and to living with purpose. The key lies in integrating our inner opposites. Instead of denying fears or suppressing insecurities, we can embrace them as vital parts of growth. Every person carries both light and shadow,
True maturity comes when we accept and balance both sides. That means questioning old habits, releasing self-doubt, and being open to new possibilities. Once we realize the unconscious doesn't have to control us, but can instead be an ally, true transformation begins. Now is the time to decide. Will you keep living inside old patterns, or are you ready to take conscious control of your life? The first step is awareness. The second is intentional action. By questioning your inner beliefs and examining your choices with a fresh perspective, you unlock the path to deeper self-discovery. And remember, your greatest fear often hides your greatest potential. The dance of life is waiting for you to step into rhythm and move with courage.